Hello, welcome to another episode of The World Beyond Belief. We're so glad you joined us. I'm your co-host, Mindy Erkin, and with me today, as always, is your host, Dr. Paul Marco.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. We have a real exciting show today. Well, today we have a very important topic, and that topic is, of course, the Pope and his launching the New World Order and what some Christians are calling the beginning of the Tribulation. Pretty important topic, and we're going to talk about all things related to that and how we got there and where we go from there. But we're going to put it in the context of a training program. Now, a long time ago, in the late 70s, I left my job teaching and I got into corporate America. And my first job in corporate America was, of course, in the training department. I became a writer of programmed instruction. Now they're called data designers, program designers. But this is before computers were really used in businesses, or in this business anyway, for this application. And so what I did was I would take a subject, and I can remember one of the programs I wrote was how to do the end of the day financials for this particular retail chain that I worked for. So I had to learn how to do it and then put it in what they called programmed instruction, which was notebook based at that time. It wasn't computer based like it is today. Now, it was a real switch for me because being in the world of public schools, we used a method that they referred to in business as spray and pray, where we gave the information out, and if you got it, you got it. If you didn't get it, you didn't get it. And it wasn't real effective. It wasn't real cost effective, but it had a couple advantages. One, it let everybody learn what they wanted to learn at their own speed, creatively learn. That's all out of public schools now. Now they use more business type applications to teach them brainwashing, basically. I had to throw that in. Anyway, so here we go. So I'm learning how to do this programmed instruction. Now, programmed instruction in a business, if you were going to take somebody off the job for an hour to do your program, they had to benefit from it. They had to learn and then go back and be able to do that. You couldn't take them off the job and waste their time. It wasn't cost effective. So these programs had to absolutely work every time, no matter who it was that took the program. And it worked. It was a branching program. So you'd teach them something and then you'd give them a little test. You teach and then you test and then you branch them. The ones that answered this way would go to page X. The ones that answered this way would continue to page O. The ones that answered this way. And it would branch. And it would eventually teach everybody everything. Now, of course, there was a minimal standard level performer that would take this thing. But believe me, it was very low. They used to say that the job interview for these jobs, these were retail clerk jobs, was simply to put a mirror under their nose, and if they were breathing, they were good to go and they'd pass. And they were ready for Paul's training program in how to do the paperwork. Well, it was an amazing revelation to me because we taught everybody everything through that. I mean, there's hardly things that you couldn't teach through that. Left brain things. You can teach anything left brain through that branching program. Now, right brain skills and things that are a little bit more esoteric, how to think creatively, doesn't help. But in left brain things, which is the focus of the world today, it worked. Nowadays, they have computer programs, and this is a much more sophisticated way of doing this. You can have an infinite number of branches. You can have an infinite number of answers to branch back and reteach and relearn. It's an incredible thing. They teach very complicated things in a short period of time, especially in the military, because it's all left brain, it's all stimulus response, obedience, and all that stuff. So they can teach these complicated subjects through computer programs. They can probably teach some things that are right brain, a little bit more right brain too. I'm not sure. I haven't been in contact with that for a long time. But I have taken programs, computer courses online, and it's totally amazing how they've taken the rudimentary technology that I used in the 70s and made it into, God, it's like working with a friend. You know, they have the questions, they have the answers, they know what you need to know. It's great. So that's a simple analogy. Let's imagine, with that analogy in mind, let's imagine that the whole experience we're having on the planet, everything that's transpired in our life, the whole rollout of human history, whatever it is, because we really don't know what human history is, because it's been written by the winners, and the winners have generally been the Illuminati, and the Illuminati wants to tell you what they want to tell you, so we're kind of lacking any concrete historical reference for more than 100 years back, or even then. It's sketchy and it's being blown apart every day. But anyway, let's go back to the training program. Let's say this is a training program that we're in, and it's a branching training program. That means that it's not only a training program, it's a testing program. Training, testing, training, testing, training, testing. That's how it works. So, here we are, and what would be this training program's bottom line? What would be the objective of this training program? Well, for some reason, if you follow the Yuga cycles, we've gone down into the Iron Age, the Kali Yuga, and we're learning lessons of some sort in the materium. And we seem to be, it seems to be very dualistic. It seems to be a lot of lessons around black and white, right and wrong, focus on service to self, focus on service to others. It's amazing. Those seem to be the lessons. If you follow the Garden of Eden tale, the objective is pretty clear. Eve wanted to know the difference between good and evil. Simple. You put them in, you take her and Adam and you put them in a training program where they're faced with good and evil, and they have to discern good and evil over and over again. And it becomes more and more difficult because there are deceivers there. You know, learning good from bad would be pretty simple, except there's deceivers, and the deceivers are there to throw you off, to make things a little more complicated, to, really see if you really, really know what you're doing. I have to tell you about a test that I took when I was in college. The year before I graduated, I had to take a course in civics or something like that. And this course was noted for dropping people out. It's a senior year course. And I can remember the test. Actually, I wish I had a copy of it because it was an amazing test. Every question took 2 pages. On the first page was a paragraph talking about some related incident in history. The second page was 3 or 4 answers, but these weren't the answers. These were ideas. And it would go, on the second page, it would go, according to this paragraph, such and so could be true, but the other one maybe not be true because of the conflict that was happening between da-da-da-da-da. And then the second paragraph would say, because of incidents happening around the world, the second paragraph was basically an economic problem, da-da-da-da-da. The third, you get the idea. So after you read those 3 paragraphs, the questions came. The questions were A, sometimes B, never D. C could be true. It was it was a mind blower to go through that and take that test. That's simple compared to the test that's in this training program, if indeed we're in a training program. You know, a lot of people are saying now, actually it started with, what's his name? Peach Dick, what's the science fiction writer, who supposed that we were in a computer simulation. We were in a, Philip K. Dick. Now, people seem to be finding evidence that, yeah, that's what it is. If it's a holographic reality and our experiences are somehow run through our consciousness and we get feedback and we can go ahead and we can proceed this way, it sounds like a really sophisticated, really wonderful training program. And the objective is to teach us good from evil. Simple lesson. But the test is like the test I took in my civics class in my senior year in college. It's a mind blower because there's deceivers. And the deceivers are in high positions. And they're in the media. And they're in the education. And the deceivers are all around you. So you not only have to know good from evil, simple, but you have to get around the deceivers who are trying to screw you up. And it's an interesting program because you get feedback on a short-term basis. Most people aren't aware of that feedback because they fall for dupes like, oh, that's just a coincidence. And they don't learn from the experience. Or, oh, did that really happen? I didn't notice. They're living such a mindless life that they don't really know what's happening. So you get short-term feedback all the time. You get midterm feedback. How your life seems to be trailing off, where it's leading you to, and what's helping you out, and what behaviors are not helping you out. What behaviors, what you're choosing of evil, are leading you back down a path of less and less possibility, or more and more dark possibility. And then, of course, there's a long-term payback. You know, what are you after this simulation is over, and you're reflecting on this simulation in whatever form you are? Are you going to be happy with what you did? Did you do well on learning good from evil? It's not easy, this good from evil thing. I mean, I know people who are frackers. Now, they're fracking. Now, if you're aware and you're awake, you know that the purpose of fracking is to eliminate the water system, to pollute the water table so that you're more easily manipulatable. It's early in the morning here. Because if they want you to do something, if you don't have any water, taking off your water. Actually, Henry Kissinger, they were setting up the FEMA camps, and somebody in an interview asked Henry Kissinger, how are you going to get the people to the FEMA camps? And he says, they're going to walk there. They're going to want to go there. Why? Because there's going to be no water and there's going to be no food. So they're going to be streaming into the FEMA camps. So if you know about fracking, you know that's what the purpose is. The whole thing about finding oil and gas. You know, if that's a purpose at all, it's minor purpose. So if you're involved in fracking and you want to support your family and you're doing fracking, you're making the wrong choice. You're choosing evil. But if you know, if you haven't opened your mind, if you believe what the mainstream media, which are deceivers, are telling you, you're going to be easily duped into making the wrong choice. And it'll take more instruction for you to learn. Now, I think after the 23rd, we step it up. I think that the Pope, there's no doubt in my mind that his meeting with the UN on the 25th, is launching the official New World Order. And it'll have components like the TPP and other things, but it started. This is what I would call the final test, the final training test. This is hardcore, up-in-your-face training. This is hardcore learning right from wrong in the toughest way. If you haven't started to awakening, if you haven't started into the awakening, you're going to wish you had. And there's going to be a lot of catching up to do. And that New World Order period, tribulation period, is going to be as hard as you make it for yourself and for others. And you can make it easier by learning your lesson. Now let's go back to the training program idea. Let's say that the training program has one student, but the student has 8 billion possible training, so I call them modules or nodes operating in one time. So you've got 8 billion eyes looking out at this reality, taking this training program. Could you imagine the data that if we're one thing, if we're one consciousness, that all our 8 billion, well, it would be 16 billion eyes are taking in on this planet regarding this training program? We are going to know good from evil. We're going to see it from every different angle. We're going to see it from the people who are easily seduced and sold their soul to the devil to be in a boy band. We're going to see it from the eyes of some of the new age gurus that sold their souls or decided to cheat a little bit and help the new world order and the tribulation, make it more tough on people by giving them false ideas or things that are going to lead them astray. Well, and we're going to see it through the eyes of the people who are leading it, the people who are leading the awakening and working as hard as they can to get. You're going to see it through all those eyes. You're getting all that experience because you're human consciousness. Now, I don't even mention animals. I mean, they're either trainers or students themselves, and we're going to be getting that feedback too. We're infinite consciousness, and we're growing through this amazing, amazing training program, and it's going to be stepped up in September, stepped up to an amazing, amazing level. So I suggest you help people wake up, you get on your high horse, you get on the ball, which is another strange analogy, and you really try to learn what you can, because if we all know good and evil, if we all know it now, there's no reason for the training program. The evil doesn't trick us. It doesn't interfere with our loving one another, our peace, and our going back to the golden age. But anyway, that said, what I want to do with this week's show is, we always talk about levels. We talk about the hidden esoteric level, the medium level that we're starting to catch on, and the surface level. Give 911 for an example. In 911, there's a bunch of levels. The first level is the World Trade Center blew up, and the mainstream media said it was done by 19 hijackers from various Middle Eastern countries, and they did it because they hated our freedom. Now, that's the mainstream media. That's the major deception. It's always the physical. It's the major deception. And that becomes clearer and clearer as you notice the false flags now. We can see them as they happen. It's amazing. If you're awakening, the minute they happen, I mean, we were on the South Carolina shooting, is it North Carolina shooting? Charleston, South Carolina shooting. We were on it like crazy. We knew it. We knew why they were doing it. We knew it was to distract from part of the TPP that was going through Congress. We knew they wanted a race war. We knew they wanted gun, and on and on and on. We knew right away. So we can see through that level, that superficial level that they're giving us. And it's still tricking a lot of people. They still haven't learned that training program. And then there's the next level. The next level is knowing what really happened. It's like the loose change level. If you've ever watched Loose Change. If you haven't watched Loose Change, take your time and watch Loose Change. There's also so many things on YouTube to not only tell you how it happened, what happened, who benefited, who did it. I mean, it's out there. That's the other level. But there's another level. There's the esoteric level. There's the language of symbols. Now, this is the language that the, what can we call them, trainers? We can call them psychopathic Satanists, whatever. This is the level they communicate with one another. This is the ritualistic level. This is this is where the physical level interacts with the, I could call it the spiritual level. I could call it the energetic level. This is where it interacts with the energetic level to cause these things to happen. Usually what we do in this program is we start with the concrete, then we go down, and we usually touch around the esoteric level a little bit. But I think we need to get into the esoteric level more and more, because they're communicating all around us in this language, and we have to be savvy. We have to know how to speak this language. So a lot of the program is about that language, and what I've decided to do is start with the esoteric level and then work back up to the manifestation level on this program. So we're going to start with the esoteric level of 911. Now, the esoteric level of 911. I'm going to, these are the symbols, by the way. We just clicked it on. See, they communicate through these symbols. And what they do is they communicate to one another through these symbols. For example, this one. This one has several symbols. But they communicate to one another through this symbol, but they hide things from us using these symbols. So they're not speaking English or Spanish or any other language that we know. They're speaking the language of symbols. And we're going to be able to do much better on our test. We're going to have a much happier life. And we're going to get through this New World Order madness a lot easier if we can read their symbols. Now, I've chosen to show you a little short video that you're going to find fascinating. I was blown away by it. And it's my one of my favorite websites, Round Saturn's Eye. If you don't, you should subscribe to that website. That's an important one to subscribe to. He's an incredible analyst, and he speaks so well. I wish in some life that I'm able to speak as well as this guy can. Now, he's very much a Christian, which helps, because he's very familiar with the Bible stories, and how that relates to what I'm going to call them the demons, or our oppressors, the controllers are into. They have taken most of their symbolism, because they can't create anything. They can only pervert and twist what's already created. They've taken the Bible and the Bible stories and the stories of in the Bible, and they've twisted them. And they use, most of the symbols are actually Bible symbols that they've perverted and twisted. So I'm going to let Round Saturn Eye. Now Round Saturn Eye, the man is very much a Christian, so he's very much interested in proselytizing. So he uses a lot of Christian language. I don't want you to be turned off by it. Listen, I grew up, when I grew up, Christianity was not a real appealing thing to me. And they had started creating fundamentalism, which moved the idea of what Christianity was way off to the right. So I was initially, or for most of my life, turned off by the Christian type rhetoric. I got into the New Age beliefs, and I was very much interested in that kind of knowledge, and turned off by the Christian terminology. Bad idea. You can learn so much from the Christian terminology, from the way that Christians look at things, because now the New World Order is putting things in to the tune of the Christian prophecy. So if you want to know what's going on, if you want to know the symbols, you have to speak this language. So I'm going to implore you, don't be turned off by this language. Let it get what you can out of it. And well, without further ado, let's watch this wonderful video on 911 from the esoteric level by Round Saturn I.
I think you'll agree in that 9/11/2001 was one of the most Hollywood-esque, larger-than-life events that played out on all of our TV screens across the whole world. It's something that we'll never forget. I think most of us can even remember where we were when we found out about what happened and what was going on. I'm sure it doesn't surprise most that are in the truth-seeking community in this time that 9/11 was a satanic ritual, coming to that conclusion from many different angles, from many different ways, all leading to the same truth, that it was in fact representing the birthing of the new age of Antichrist, the ripping the veil, the bringing in of the beast police state system, and all manner of things, but also a blood sacrifice ritual into the wine press, Samson pushing down the two pillars. But this all correlates to what we've been looking into in the last video, what we've been looking into in regards to the cube behind the veil. It all links in together, and in this video we're going to have a look again through Solomon's temple, Herod's temple, how this all correlates to Jesus Christ when he died and rose again, and the veil was ripped in that temple to reveal the cornerstone that was behind the veil. And this all links together with 9/11 and many different things. So let's have a look at this. So 9/11/2001, IXXI, many believe, or some believe, that Jesus himself was born on 9/11 3 BC, which is pretty interesting because 9/11/2001 is an inversion of that, 9/11/2001 3 AD. But this event, this horrific event that happened on 9/11/2001, we've discussed this before in terms of the two pillars, like Samson pushing down the two pillars, north and south, plus and minus, just like the pillars in Freemasonry, Yashin and Boaz, plus and minus. So the male and female, the parents, and just like that Samson figure pushing it down in the Bible. And then you've got the child here, which in terms of what we're looking at the moment, as I say, there's many different ways of understanding the nature of this satanic ritual, because there's many different paths and roads that lead to the same conclusion. But the World Trade Center 7 representing that cornerstone. Now remember, Jesus Christ is our true cornerstone, and this all involves inverting. It's to do with the Antichrist. They're trying to open the pit, they're trying to bring in the Antichrist and the age of the Antichrist. So that involves smashing this cornerstone, as per usual, smashing this stone. So just to put it very simply, this is exactly what we're looking at when we look at that. We're looking at the figure pushing down the two pillars and the veil breaking, just like when Jesus died on the cross and the veil was rent and the cube collapsing, the cornerstone collapsing behind the veil. Now, G is the 7th letter of the alphabet. So that is exactly what that's representing there, including the generative principle. But you see how when these pillars come down, collapsing the cube, the cornerstone, G equals 7, building 7, and then rebuilding into a new tower, which would be the transfigured third temple, but of the material world. Because when Jesus Christ defeated the curse, ripped the veil and defeated death and sin, which is, we'll go into in another video how we see the truth of the gospel through this. He rose again in the true third temple. Jesus Christ is the temple of the living God. He rose again out of the curse of sin and death. The grave could not hold him, and he rose again and became our true third temple. And when we're in the body of Christ, we are safe in our Father's hands. So that G, as we looked before, the tesseract, the game cube, is to do with portal. Remember, ripping the fabric of time and space. And it's all represented, as I've shown before, here and here again, the two towers with that G in the centre, bringing in Lucifer, opening the window. And 9/11 being a sacrifice into the winepress, level 7 in the womb, the winepress. And the blood of the innocent, as they always do in these satanic rituals, into the winepress. So essentially we're looking at this figure here, Samael, Samson, son of Samael, son of Satan, pushing down these two pillars. You see, this is the Freemasonic G, the square and the compass that he's standing in between and pushing down the two pillars. And of course, building 7 was collapsed. So he was, remember the story of Samson, when he pushed down the pillars, he was killed. So that would be the same kind of allegory there, the bringing down that and rising into a new tower, rising into a new transfigured tower, the One World Trade Center. And this is what it's all about, IXXI. IXXI is 9/11 in Roman numerals. And look what is in the center of IXXI. It's a hexagon, which is a 3-dimensional cube. And that's what it was all about. It was a direct inversion of when Jesus Christ died on the cross and the veil was rent. This is exactly an inversion. See, that World Trade Center 7, the collapse, the smashing of the cornerstone, a direct inversion of Christ, this is what they're representing, you see. It's the same as the breaking of the egg, the split cracking open of the egg, and the rising of the son of Lucifer. You see what's in the center there. It's about portals, it's about opening the womb, it's dimensional, it's ripping the fabric of time and space, bringing down the two pillars of our society in many different ways. Remember, all of these have different layers of meaning, because the spiritual is incredibly deep, and it doesn't just kill one bird, it kills multiple birds with one stone, cracking open the egg, that cube. And this being XX, which is the seal of Saturn, and the compass draws the circle, and this is a square, that's time and space. This is all about bringing down the reality in which we live, essentially, and rebuilding into their new age of Horus Luciferian age that they're trying to desperately to bring in. Remember, 9/11 happened just after the millennium. It happened in 9/11/2001, just after the big hype about the millennium. You see the way that this works? You see the way that Satan is constantly copying, counterfeiting, and the way that Satan is constantly desperate at the, well, this is what it's all about, because Jesus Christ, when he died on the cross, he cracked through time and space, because he died on the sword in the stone. He cracked through time and space. There was an earthquake and people came out of their graves. And you see, when he died and rose again, it was a huge victory over Satan's kingdom. And as such, they are desperately trying to get out of what they're stuck in.
Well, that blew my mind when I saw that, to realize the symbolism in the towers and how it works with, especially Building 7. The G stands for Building 7. They had to take it down. They didn't use a plane, they just took it down. The meeting of the two pillars is happening again. The way I'm interpreting these symbols right now is that the destruction of the two towers is the beginning of the end. It's like the opening for the New World Order, the opening for circumstances to coalesce so that we could create the chaos for the order out of chaos. And the two towers are going to be reunited, and I'll explain that in a minute, to put the order back in the order out of chaos. Now the chaos will continue, and again, people will be drawn to the order. Again, Kissinger, we asked him how we're going to get people into the FEMA camps. They're going to be drawn to the FEMA camps because it's going to be where they're going to get their water. Remember, last week we talked about I always call it the Vermeer floor because I'm an art history student, and I remember that Vermeer used to paint these black and white checkered floors, but they could be called the Masonic floor, black and white checkered. Remember, the whole ploy hinges on black and white. We have a new pope. He's a Catholic, white. He's a Jesuit, black. They call the black pope. They call the Jesuit pope the black pope. So that's how they do things. So what's going to happen is there's going to be the chaos, which is the black, which is already taking place. I mean, we see false flags happening all over. People are being terrified. CERN's opening gates to hell, and God does know what's happening. On the other side is the order. Come to the order. Come to the new world order, and we'll guarantee you peace and stability and happiness. Of course, you'll live in a 200 square foot apartment. You'll be eliminated when they can't feed you. I mean, horrible things are going to happen, but we'll get into that later. But let's now go into a little bit more of esotericism and learn a little bit more about these symbols. Now, Ron Saturn and I talked about the two pillars of Solomon, Solomon's pillars. Now, Solomon's pillars were blue and red. And let me show you how that looks on the color wheel. Okay, here we have simple color wheel. Now this, as I said, I'm an art teacher, art history student, and I love this stuff. So this is like my water I'm swimming in here. There's three primary colors in pigment. There's blue, yellow, and blue, yellow, and red. They're the three primary colors, and theoretically and actually you can make all colors out of these three pigments. Now, one of the towers of Solomon is blue, Jachin. The other tower is red, Boaz. I might have those confused, it doesn't matter to me right now for what I'm explaining. And they're going to be coming together, the blue and the red pillar are going to be coming together in Washington on September the 23rd. Now let me tell you a little bit about what they symbolize. The blue symbolizes control, constriction, tightening. The red symbolizes power, like the flame. It's like ice, controlled, constricted. Red, fire, flame, power. So we have meeting in Washington, D.C. on the 23rd. Very auspicious occasion, right before the blood moon, on the day after the equinox. We have the blue which is control, which is the Pope. Pope, control. Nothing is more, Catholics call their schools parochial schools. Parochial means literally narrow-minded. It's dogmatic, means that it's not creative. It's very patterned and ritualistic. The Pope is the blue. Barry Soetoro, playing the role of Barack Obama, is the red. I should have said Jorge Bergoglio is the blue, and Barry Soetoro, playing Obama, is the red. The power. He's the most powerful man in the world. The U.S. spends far more on their military than all other countries combined, and that doesn't include the black budget, which is probably, I remember a long time ago, probably 1996 or 97, I was working. I had an assignment to work for the Canadian Air Command. And I remember that year, the estimated black budget. Now this is the black budget that was sent from the Congress to whoever runs the black budget, was equal to the whole military defense expenditure of the Canadian government. And the part that was sent to the military from the taxpayers doesn't include all the money that they make on illegal drugs, child trafficking, and and probably out and out blackmail and those type of nefarious activities that they always do. So they have that income also. So it's an incredible, what I wanted to say is Barack Obama controls an incredible army, an army like the world has never known and hopefully will never know after we get rid of these, after we get through whatever we're going to get through. So anyway, they're coming to meet, and what they're going to create is the yellow. It's the G in between the pillars. We have the pillars. It's the G, the blue. This is supposed to be blue. It looks purple to me. And this is the red. And this is what it sets the stage for, the yellow. Now the yellow is the Luciferian, what the Christians will call Antichrist, the Luciferian person who's coming in. And we've speculated that it could be anybody from Tuesday Weld to Oprah Winfrey to a demonic figure to Cern Unos. And someone wrote me this morning and they said they suspect, we were thinking of having a contest, named the Maitreya contest, to figure out what this figure is going to be or who's going to symbolize this figure. Somebody said it's probably, they suspect it's Solomon himself, because Solomon was, I guess, a really great king. And some people regard him as a Christ-like figure, which would be perfect for this new world order leader person. But anyway, Jorge Bergoglio, the Pope, is setting the stage for this thing. Down through the years, actually the Catholic Church started off, I think it started off as a control mechanism for the people, and it's functioned very well all the way down through the centuries. Now, this Pope is trying to turn over a new leaf for the Catholic Church. He's trying to be humble. It's very difficult to be the Pope and be humble. And he's produced a document called the Evangelii Gaudium. And this he produced in 2013, I think, late in the year. And you can see it's really quite a document, a joy ever new, a joy which is shared, the delight of comforting, the joy of evangelizing, the church which goes forth. And talks about different things. In chapter 2, it gets into it. Some challenges of today's world. And he's advocating no to the economy of exclusion. Now, he means capitalism. You know that the financial system of the New World Order is communism or socialism, because it's much easier to control people if they all work for you. So if everybody's on the payroll, total control. So they want to get rid of capitalism, and this is the first kind of foot in the door kind of movement for that. No to the idolatry of money. Everybody's in favor of that. Who could say no to these? Actually, who could say no to this whole document? It's really tough, unless you're reading between the lines, and you know the history of Jorge Bergoglio and the Catholic Church, and most of all, the Jesuits. Say no to the financial system with rules rather than serves. Well, it serves very well the people who are actually sponsoring the New World Order. The people like George Soros, the Koch brothers, Bill Gates, Barry Soetoro, all these people that have the money. The financial system serves them well. And since they're sponsoring him and his church and the whole thing, I think that you've got to look at this document as something that is a deception. No to the inequality which spawns violence. Who could not be in favor of that? You see, all of these no's, every church, every religion, even the New Age religions are going to, say, who could say no, who could reject these ideas? So he's trying to unite the church. He's trying to get all the churches together, because the New World Order, critical component, I've said this over and over again, critical component of the New World Order is the New World Christ, or the New World Messiah. They need a Messiah because it's a New World Order based on sorcery, magic. They've done their best to destroy the credibility of science, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But it's going to be run from a Messiah, and what the Messiah says goes. There's not going to be any question about it. If you don't fall down and worship this Messiah they're going to put in place, it's symbolized by yellow, I don't think you're going to make it through very long, unless we can unite and we can make it very, very difficult for them. Some cultural challenges. Anyway, it goes through other things. I suggest that you get this, just so you know. I mean, you have to know everything you can to get through this. Get through it really in grand style, and keep others from suffering. You have to know. So go in. You can find this anywhere. It's online, and it's designed to appeal to all faiths, so they'll all come together. And he's got a few things. I've pulled some parts out of it. And of course, it talks about poor. The poor is the pivotal concept. Now, in some countries, the poor are called simple, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just a way you live. And it used to be that holy people would take a bow of poverty because it would exalt them. It would free them from the strains of material life, and they could really get into their spiritual practice. So poor has only been a degradation for the last couple hundred years. Before that, it was called simple. And you could be simple. And I've been simple all my life, actually. So anyway, let me read from this document. Just as the commandment, thou shalt not kill, sets a clear limit in order to safeguard the value of human life, today we also have to say, thou shalt not, to the economy of exclusion and inequality. That's amazing. So what this Pope wants to do is unite all the world's religion into a one world religion, which is a real interesting maneuver because he's a Jesuit. Now, if you don't know much about Jesuits, let me lay it on you this way. It's called the Black Pope for a reason, because the Black Pope is like the army of the papacy. They don't even need to be Catholic. It's an organization that wipes out anybody that's not Catholic. Basically, that's it. You can find the Jesuit oath anywhere online, and I would suggest, well, we'll link it up below so that you can read it too. It's an interesting document. Now, this Jorge Bergoglio, at some point in his life, took this oath, and if he's true to this oath, the rest of this document and the wanting to get the churches together, that's what the Sunday thing is all about. The church, the Pope recently is wanting everybody to take Sunday off, which isn't a bad idea, but it's a bad idea if it's mandated. It's a good idea if you can take Sunday off, but it's a bad idea if it's mandated. And it's an attempt to get something that all the religions can believe on, okay, can agree on, so it can go forward. But he's a Jesuit. Let me read the oath. It starts out with Latin words: Istum necar reges impious, the meaning of which is, it is just to exterminate or annihilate impious or heretical kings, governments, or rulers. Goes, I furthermore promise and declare that I will, when the opportunity presents, make and wage relentless war, secretly or openly, against all heretics. Now, heretics is anybody that's not a Catholic. It goes on to say, Protestants and liberals, as I am directed to extirpate and exterminate them from the face of the whole earth. This is the guy who's uniting all the disparate followers, all the faiths, so we can have a one world Messiah. And that I will spare neither age, sex, nor condition, that I will hang, waste, boil, flay, strangle, and bury alive these infamous heretics, rip up the stomachs and wombs of their women, and crush their infants' heads against the walls in order to annihilate forever their execrable race. That when the same cannot be done openly, I will secretly use the poisoned cup, the strangling cord, the steel of the poniard, or the leaden bullet, regardless of honor, rank, dignity, or authority of the person or persons, whatever be their condition in life, either public or private, as I at any time may be directed to do so by an agent of the Pope or superior of the Brotherhood of the Holy Faith of the Society of Jesus. This has nothing to do with Jesus. Let me start that again. In confirmation of which, I hereby dedicate my life, my soul, and my corporal powers. And with this dagger, which I now receive, I will subscribe my name written in my own blood. In testimony thereof, and should I prove false or weaken in my determination, May my brethren and fellow soldiers of the militia of the Pope cut off my hands and my feet, and my throat from ear to ear, my belly opened, and sulfur burned wherein, with all the punishment that can be inflicted upon me on earth, and my soul be tortured by demons in an eternal hell forever. Jorge took that oath. The Pope took that oath. So if he says now that he wants to do all these things, and he wants to unite all these religions, he's asked his brethren, Jesuits, to take him out if he starts to do this kind of stuff. So I suggest that we're being tricked by the Pope, by Barry Soetoro, by the Congress, by the United Nations, by everybody that's not the people, into this this dastardly New World Order that we're going to get to in a minute. Now, let's go back to the black and white. The combination of the black and white, the checkerboard floor, has been in play with the Jesuits and the Catholics for a long time. Let's do a short history lesson on what that looks like.
People generally forget the mistakes of the past. Citizens who are caught up in Hitler's Nazi Germany hardly notice the gradual development of extremism, mainly due to high emotions and dazzling propaganda. But history often repeats itself. FEMA plastic coffins, detention centres, armoured checkpoints and armoured military vehicles for civil purposes are well-documented facts, and witnesses who have worked for the United States military claim stores of guillotines located in Fort Lewis military facility. The latest revelation of Obamacare sanctions death by guillotine, code ICD 9E978. However, Obama was only following the mandate of the World Health Organization, one of the specialized agencies under the United Nations. Is the United States government getting ready for a fascist quasi-dictatorship involving forced religion? It would not be the first time that fascism and counterfeit Christianity have merged. Fascism and Catholicism have become synonymous throughout history. Recent developments have seen so-called Protestantism clasping hands with the Vatican. Protestantism once meant protesting against the Roman Catholic Church and her doctrine, labelling the Pope as the Antichrist as the Reformers proclaimed during the Reformation. An ex-Jesuit priest, Dr. Alberto Rivera, explains, "In America, the Vatican's agents were at work to wipe out the Protestant movement through ecumenism. The secret sign to be given to the Jesuits worldwide when this was accomplished by the Vatican was when a President of the United States took his oath of office facing an obelisk, four-sided pillar that resembled the Washington Monument and the one in St. Peter's Square in the Vatican. For the first time in history, the swearing-in ceremonies were moved to the west front of the Capitol, and President Reagan faced the Washington Monument on January the 20th, 1981. For those who are unfamiliar with the Jesuit order, it was the Catholic answer to counteract the Reformation sparked in 1517. Loyola Ignatius's formula for the formation of the Jesuits was approved by Pope Paul III in 1540. Napoleon Bonaparte had this to say about the Jesuit order: "The Jesuits are a military organization, not a religious order. Their chief is the general of an army, not the mere father abbot of a monastery. And the aim of this organization is power. Power in its most despotic exercise. Absolute power, universal power, power to control the world by the volition of a single man. Jesuitism is the most absolute of despotisms, and at the same time the greatest and most enormous of abuses. The general of the Jesuits insists on being master, sovereign over the sovereign. Wherever the Jesuits are admitted, they will be masters, cost what it may. Their society is by nature dictatorial, and therefore it is the irreconcilable enemy of all constituted authority. Every act, every crime, however atrocious, is a meritorious work, if committed for the interest of the society of the Jesuits or by the order of the general. The Vatican has historically used civil powers in past ages as she does today. Kings, dictators, presidents and prime ministers bow and scrape to the most powerful and richest organization on the planet. because it is politically expedient to do so. The Roman Catholic Church is secretly tightening her grip on geopolitics and the autonomy of nations who are secretly serving the Pope. Pope John Paul II and President Reagan worked together, bringing about the collapse of the Soviet Union, with the first blow being the breaking down of the Berlin Wall. After years of the Vatican being accused of being un-American, the United States and the Holy See announced the establishment of diplomatic relations on January 10, 1984, under the Reagan administration. The Senate confirmed William A. Wilson as the first U.S. ambassador to the Holy See. The alliance between the United States and the Vatican benefited both political powers. The Cold War and Marxist atheism made the Vatican and the United States unlikely bed partners. As US presidents are well aware of the authority the Vatican wields, with just over 1.1 billion Catholics spread throughout the world, Jesuit educational facilities also spread and indoctrinate both Catholic and non-Catholic students with Jesuit maxims around the world, shaping the minds of future leaders so the Vatican is truly a force to be reckoned with. Some idea of the real estate and other forms of wealth controlled by the Catholic Church may be gathered by the remark of the New York Catholic Conference, namely that his church probably ranks second only to the United States government in total annual purchase. Another statement, made by a nationally syndicated Catholic priest, is perhaps even more telling. The Catholic Church, he said, must be the biggest corporation in the United States. We have a branch office in every neighborhood. Our assets and real estate holdings must exceed those of Standard Oil, AT&T, and US Steel combined. And our roster of dues-paying members must be second only to the tax rolls of the United States government. Avro Manhattan. The Central Intelligence Agency was the creation of Roman Catholic Knights of Malta member Alan Dulles. In recent years, CIA, NSA directors have been Catholic Jesuit-educated men. Historically, the confessional was the biggest intelligence-gathering machine of the Vatican. But now electronic surveillance has superseded the confessional as the single most effective tool of modern times, giving the edge on business, politics, and religion. A Catholic has first duty to the Pope before loyalty to a king, queen, or country. Perhaps this is why many misgivings are expressed about Roman Catholics holding positions that pertain to national security. Furthermore, we declare, we proclaim, we define that it is absolutely necessary for salvation that every human creature be subject to the Roman pontiff, Pope Boniface. The Roman Catholic Church has always been savvy, influencing armies to do her bidding because wars cost money. Let's take a look at the leaders that the Vatican has used in the past to achieve her religio-political ends. King Clovis I, who united the barbarian tribes that eventually became the Franks, and then enforced the rule of the Roman Catholic Church during the decline of Rome after Emperor Constantine moved the capital of the Roman Empire to Constantinople. King Charlemagne enforced Catholicism and was then crowned emperor by Pope Leo III at Christmas in 800 AD. King Charles IX ordered the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre of the Huguenots, French Calvinist Protestants, beginning on the 23rd of August 1572 in mostly Catholic Paris. King Philip II of Spain ordered the Spanish Armada to invade Protestant England in 1588. Dr. Alberto Rivera, an ex-Jesuit priest, also gives us information on the rise of Adolf Hitler. Another great Inquisition was about to begin. Instead of wearing Dominican robes, they were wearing Nazi uniforms. Hitler's brown shirts, called the Nazis, back to the Vatican, used the same tactics of Mussolini beating and bullying opposition into submission, including Roman Catholics. Dr. Alberto Rivera. Hitler's book Mein Kampf was ghost-written by Jesuit priest Father Steinfeld. When it became known that Pope Pius XI supported Hitler, the Roman Catholic vote swept Hitler into power in 1933. Jesuit Father Himmler, an uncle of Heinrich Himmler, was a favourite of Jesuit Father General Count Hulk von Liederkowski. The SS organisation had been constituted by Himmler, according to the principles of the Jesuit order. The regulations and spiritual exercises prescribed by Ignatius Loyola were the model Himmler tried to copy exactly. Himmler's title as Supreme Chief of the SS was to be the equivalent of the Jesuit General, and the whole structure was a close imitation of the Catholic Church's hierarchical order. Walter Schellenberg. Munich University was founded with papal approval in 1472 and was previously the University of Ingolstadt. Eventually becoming a stronghold of the Jesuit order, the university also became the centre of the Counter-Reformation. Jesuit Petrus Canisius was the rector of the university. Both Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Illuminati, and Pope Benedict XVI were educated here. Interesting enough is that Pope Benedict XVI was a member of Hitler Youth. Joseph Mengele was an SS Nazi doctor who also was educated at the Jesuit-controlled Munich University. Mengele identified himself as a Catholic and assigned himself to Nazi Germany's racial purity project, which reached its climax at Auschwitz. He was called Uncle Mengele by the children whom he handed lollies to. Sadly, they were experimented on a short time later. The inmates who suffered at the hands of Mengele often died from shock and infection. In 1933, communications between the Nazis and the Vatican were welcomed by the Vatican's Secretary of State, Eugenio Cardinal Pacelli, a former papal diplomat to Berlin. During an elaborate ceremony on July the 20th, 1933, a concordant between the Holy See and the German Reich was officially signed and sealed by Vice-Chancellor Franz von Papen and Cardinal Pacelli. Hitler had a dream of a one-world government. Like many other Machiavellian men of past and present times, the Vatican will covertly support anyone whom they think will have a credible chance of unifying the world under one political umbrella so that the Vatican can force their apostate religion on others. The Guardian reported, as well as other sources, collaboration between the Nazis and the Vatican, helping war criminals escape the end of World War II. Dictator of Spain, General Franco, who championed the causes of Catholicism, fighting communism, using torture and execution to crush enemies or dissenters. While many are distracted by the false front of Zionism, the Roman Catholic Church has infiltrated and commandeered the United States without the public being aware. It is obvious that the US Constitution is eroding under the influence of the Jesuits, the crack troops of the Vatican. Breach of Amendment 6. NDAA Indefinite Detention Act without trial is an extension of the Patriot Act. Crafted by Jesuit Georgetown University educated Professor Viet Dinh. The assassination of foreign nationals, as well as US citizens abroad by predator drones, is also a breach of the Sixth Amendment. Chuck Hagel, Leon Panetta, and Donald Rumsfeld have attended Jesuit universities, and all have held the position of US Secretary of Defense. The mighty and widely ramified Order of St. Ignatius was powerful enough to procure by its interest far greater advantages to individuals than could any other corporation, fraternity, or even secular power. Jesuit General Jean-Baptiste Janssens. Breach of Amendment 4, spying on US citizens without warrant. Former NSA Director General Michael Hayden and incumbent NSA General Keith B. Alexander are both Roman Catholics and tools of the Jesuits. General Michael Hayden was also educated at a Jesuit university. Revelations from Edward Snowden reveal just how widespread this illegal surveillance extends itself. Many nations are holding conferences on how to counteract this problem. Public outrage has been expressed in places like Germany, but it seems that some German government departments, like BND, have implicit involvement with the NSA. Many governments portray disapproval publicly to the media, but secretly aid and abet US spy agencies. Breach of Amendment 2, the right to keep and bear arms. Michael Quigley, educated by the Jesuits, sponsored an amendment to the Patriot Act prohibiting the sales of weapons to people on the FBI terrorist watch list. The trouble is that the FBI now regards some protesters and independent journalists as a threat to national security, therefore deemed terrorists.
Well, I hope after all this information you're clear on what the Jesuits are all about. They're behind a lot of things, and you can always trace it back to the Jesuits. So I wanted to say that. Back to the color wheel, though. This is a thrill for me because I get to teach art again. This is the color wheel. We're going to go back into the symbolism of colors, and I'm sticking with the occultism here. There's another color wheel right here. And if it comes up, we'll be in good shape. That one doesn't seem to want to work. So let's go to another color wheel. Whoa, all these color wheels. Where's the one I'm looking for? There's a color wheel for pigment, and there's a color wheel for light. The color wheel for light is a little different. It's blue, red, and the third color is green. If you're into Photoshop and you work with changing colors in that system, they use I think it's the red, blue, green, or red, green, blue, RGB system. And it starts with the three primary colors are red, blue, and green. Now, in certain occult circles, green is the color of Lucifer. It's the color that red and blue combined creates. It creates green instead of yellow. Now, it might be coincidental, but I don't believe at all in coincidence, that what's happening on the 25th when the Pope meets with the United Nations is he's going to be launching the green agenda. He's going to be, in the name of poverty and in the name of saving the earth, he's going to be launching the Tribulation. Some Christians think it's the Tribulation. And the New World Order. Definitely the New World Order. And he's presenting this document, The Road to Dignity by 2030. Now, how a Jesuit would know anything about dignity, I don't know. But ending poverty, who could argue with that? Transforming all lives and protecting the planet. Protecting the planet from what? You. That's right. Protecting it from you. And I wrote down some goals. I'm just going to skip through these and tell you how these goals are going to lead to Agenda 21. You know that the New World Order centers around a population of 500 million, not 8 billion. So there's not going to be a lot of people in the final analysis to live under this system. Starts off with goal 1, end poverty in all its forms everywhere. Now, how are they going to do that? Are they going to up the poverty line? Obama is already, in New York Cities and other cities, taking up the poor people and shipping them to FEMA camps that, if you're really in touch with what's going on, they're going to be equipped with guillotines. So that's a good way to end poverty. 2, end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition, promote sustainable agriculture. This could be the GM agenda. This could be what the genetically modified food agenda is going to come under. Because how else can you feed the planet? It's not like they haven't been feeding themselves for millenniums. You got to have GMOs. Ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all ages. You can't argue. Ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning. While the opportunity we have in the education we have in the United States is the core curriculum. It's anything but an education. It's a brainwashing. They're going to ensure brainwashing. Achieve gender equality, empower all women and girls. Boy, that can hide a myriad of programs. Ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all, although it doesn't address fracking, which is the major problem. Ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, modern energy. Of course, it doesn't talk about Tesla technology or taking the patents off of all the things that keep us from having that right now. Promote sustainable, inclusive sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. I was looking at a website the other day put out by the government. What percentage of the chances, what are the chances that your job is going to be done by a computer within the next 5 years? You can go to that website. I really don't remember what it is. I'll try to find it. If I can find it, I'll put it below. But I don't know how you're going to do that. Move over robots. We're going to move the people back in. Reduce inequality within and among countries. Well, that's happening now in the United States. You've noticed that the standard of living is dropping like a rock. I mean, if that equality meant everybody coming up to the same standard, it's a whole different deal. Ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns. Take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. A lot of it's about climate change from then on. Protect, restore, and promote sustainable use of terrestrial ecosystems sustainable. When you hear the word sustainable, that should be a red flag. They're coming to limit something you're doing, take your property, take your money. Sustainability is the way you use it. It's a Tavistock word. It was invented to be used for the green agenda, and the green agenda is necessary to put in Agenda 21. It said, promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development. You're going to see one of those societies toward the end. Provide access to justice for all. Oh my God. Justice for all. Strengthen the means of implementation and revitalizing the global partnership for sustainable development. The global partnership for sustainable development makes me shiver. Acknowledging that the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change is the primary international intergovernmental forum for negotiating the global response to climate change. Now, climate change is the most natural thing that's happening. Actually, we made a little piece of a video on climate change. Let me show you that. The real origins of global warming and population control was the Club of Rome, founded in 1968 at David Rockefeller's estate in Bellagio, Italy. The Club of Rome describes itself as, quote, a group of world citizens sharing a common concern for the future of humanity. It consists of current and former heads of state, UN bureaucrats, high-level politicians, and government officials, diplomats, scientists, economists, and business leaders from around the world. The United Nations contracts the Club of Rome to prepare policy guideline documents, which it uses in formulating its policies and programs. Now, in 1993, the club published The First Global Revolution. According to this book, divided nations require common enemies to unite them. Quote, either a real one or one invented for the purpose. So the Club of Rome really wasn't concerned whether it was actual or invented to get the people to move in one direction. It's like herding sheep into a pen. We've got to get them all headed in one direction. Because of the sudden absence of traditional enemies, quote, new enemies must be identified, end quote. After all, as the Club of Rome states in their book, the book's title is The Cosmos Journal, quote, humans only unite when faced with a powerful external enemy. Back to the other publication, The First Global Revolution, a report by the Club of Rome, authored by Alexander King and Bertrand Snyder, on page 75 describes what they call, quote, the vacuum. The common enemy of humanity is man. That's the lead-in paragraph. The common enemy of humanity is man. A If thinking about that doesn't make you crazy, I don't know what will. Here we go into the document. In searching for a common enemy against whom we can unite, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. In their totality and their interactions, these phenomena do constitute a common threat, which must be confronted by everyone together. But in designating these dangers as an enemy, we fall into the trap, which we've already warned readers about, namely, making symptoms for causes. All these dangers are caused by human intervention in natural processes, and it's only through changed attitudes and behavior that they can be overcome. The real enemy is humanity itself. Now, trying to save humanity from man it's got to be a psychopathic notion, because in the sane world it makes no sense at all. Let me go over some of the highlights in this document. In searching for a common enemy, it starts out, against whom we can unite, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, and water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. Now, if you look at these and take them each one at a time, pollution, you know, is caused by, of course, the internal combustion engine. That engine was invented before the Civil War, around 1850. And I drive one today. They're still on the road, they're still polluting as much as ever. Even though there's been probably hundreds of patents for energy-saving devices that could be pulled out. And who are they owned by? Well, they're owned by the Rockefellers, the originators of the Club of Rome. The polluting factories, who are they owned by? They're owned by the wealthy bankers. I think that the pollution is caused by the 1%, not the 99%. We're subject to whatever technology they allow us to have. And then the threat of global warming. Well, the threat of global warming basically fell apart because they couldn't find symptoms. The symptoms that they identified just aren't working out, so they changed it to climate change. Climate change is probably the most natural thing that happens on the planet. And they were candid in saying that they're going to have a tough time finding symptoms for the causes. In other words, they have to find problems for the reaction to the solution. Let's move on to water shortages. There's no water shortage on the planet. 70% of the planet is covered with water, and there's plenty of filtration methods around. Besides that, we don't even need to use salt water. There's plenty of fresh water. Or at least there was until they started fracking the planet. Fracking, ostensibly said to give us more access to more fossil fuels and natural gas. The real purpose is to create the problem, the water shortage, by pumping toxic chemicals into the groundwater in hopes to expel some natural gas and oil. The real purpose of fracking is water shortage, to create a water shortage. And then famine, of course, is created by the unequal distribution of farm products, not the lack of farm products or overpopulation. So this is a totally invented problem that was come up with by the Club of Rome, and since then they've been working to find symptoms, to create problems on which they can attach solution.
Manufactured fictions of man-made climate change, water and food shortages, are being used as a way to get humans to think they are the problem, the solution to which is genocide. Their own elimination is the answer. Satanists must kill, and by making humanity the problem, they can slaughter whoever they please, and the duped, dumbed-down population approves of their actions in order to save the planet. Even if these were legitimate problems, which they are not, the most inhumane solution, population reduction, should be the very last resort. Human creativity and ingenuity, and the release of patents from the exclusive control of the extremely wealthy, would be the logical first step, not killing large numbers of the population. Slaughter is not an act of kindness or love. It is the product of a diseased mind that feels the human ego and the physical body are all that matters, that there is no right and wrong, only what benefits the ego, that the most ruthless, heartless, and cruel should rule the planet and all the rest of us must die. Another created problem to justify our demise are food shortages. This doesn't have any truth to it either.
According to believers in overpopulation, there are so many of us on the planet that food production cannot possibly keep up. However, according to both the UN's Food and Agricultural Organization and the World Food Program, there is currently enough food on the planet for everyone to be well fed. Not only that, but we're growing this food on less land than we did in the past. This is why in the United States, for example, the government can afford to pay farmers not to grow food, but instead return their farmland to the wild. Modern technology also allows us to grow food on land where it would have been impossible to do so, even a few years ago. Agricultural experts even believe that Africa, if cultivated using modern farming methods, could eventually feed the whole world, all by itself. Then why are people in many parts of the world starving? The World Food Program lists key causes of hunger, and overpopulation is not on that list. War, one of the leading causes of world hunger, destroys crops and disrupts relief efforts. Widespread poverty prevents many from buying the food that they need, and a lack of infrastructure means that there isn't a reliable way to transport food to areas that need it. This is why reducing the number of hungry people will not make the remaining people less hungry. Those who have access to the food will continue to have access to it, and those who don't will still be hungry. Reducing population will not magically cause food to be spread around equally. And blaming overpopulation for everything does nothing but distract us from the real problems that we actually have. Think about it. The myth of overpopulation originated in England in 1798, when a vicar named Thomas Malthus, who fancied himself something of a mathematician, saw that food production increased incrementally, but people reproduced exponentially. He sat down and did some simple math, and summarily decided that the world would be out of food by 1890. He blamed reduced mortality rates, and recommended killing off the have-nots of society, lest the haves starve to death. This cry was taken up by Paul Ehrlich of Stanford University in 1968, who claimed that reckless human reproduction had overwhelmed the Earth. Massive famines would result, which would destroy, best-case scenario, 1/5 of humanity by the end of the 70s, and the planet would follow. This fear produced large donations for the newly created UNFPA, which thrives on an imagined crisis that has been both imminent and rescheduled again and again over the past 2 centuries. The truth of the matter is that every family on this planet could have a house with a yard and all live together on a landmass the size of Texas, which is really just a small corner of the planet. The population of Earth will peak in 30 years and then start to go back down. We're not overpopulated. Do the math. From the time of the cavemen all the way until today, humanity continues to exist because each generation of people has produced another generation to replace itself. Scientists have figured out how many people need to be born each generation to replace the generation before. That number is 1 person per person. All things being equal, this creates perfect demographic balance. Since women are the only ones who can have children, replacing every person on Earth means each woman needs to have 2 children, one to replace her, and the other to replace the man, who cannot have children. The total fertility rate is the average number of children each woman in a society is having. This number shows us if a society is growing or shrinking. In developed countries, the replacement rate birth rate is 2.1 children per woman. This will keep the population stable, but even that is assuming that every woman has children, and that there are no wars, famines, or disease. In the real world, disasters happen all the time, and sadly not all children reach adulthood, especially in poor countries. This pushes their replacement rate up to 3.3 children per woman. Since not every woman wants to have children, in order to keep the population stable, some women need to have more than 2.1 children, to balance the birth rate with the women who are only having 1, or no children at all. Maintaining this balance is of the utmost importance. If society does not at least replace itself every generation, human numbers begin to fall exponentially. Economic and social problems appear, as elderly people retiring begin to outnumber young people entering the workplace. This is already happening all over the developed world. Many of the world's nations are only barely replacing themselves, while a growing majority have birth rates below replacement, some as low as 1.8 or even 1.2 babies per woman. Many societies are facing a very real danger: extinction.
The globalist notion that they must reduce population in order to save humanity is a lie based upon unproven facts and should be considered to be nothing but an intentional deception.
Well, that's how I feel about climate change and overpopulation. When you can convince people that they're the problem, when people are the feature event, we're the reason that everything exists. It's us. Especially if you go back to my training program analogy. Who are you training? We're all eyes on this planet. We're learning. We're growing. We're not the problem. There's no overpopulation problem. But you could say, hey, Paul, but what about all the science that supports, overpopulation and most of all, global warming? Well, let me show you a quick little ad.
Do you need to convince your shareholders and regulators that your products are safe and effective? Concerned they're not seeing things your way? Why not give them a new perspective? Throw some professional science at them. You provide the funding, we provide the carefully screened researchers and any number of prestigious bought and paid for journals. We meet in a dark alley, shake hands, and the rest is an undisclosed miracle of science.
Comprehensive meta-analyses that only look at other favorable research articles and analysis. Circular logic that appears superficially legitimate. Quick and dirty short-term analysis. Postmodernist technical analyses so long no one will ever be able to read it all. Fish in a barrel cherry-picked population studies, and many more.
Are some dumbasses on the internet too dumb to understand your 100% valid science? Add on a custom trolls package and get everything from talking points to visceral ad hominem attacks and silence your dissenters. Because remember, before your brand can take off or take over, you need valid science. From Science for Sale, from the makers of Fuzzy Math.
Isn't that great? Science for sale. That's what it's all about. Science for sale. By the way, that was TruthStream Media. And if you don't know about TruthStream Media, after you're done with this video, go to put it on YouTube, TruthStream Media. They're so amazingly talented. They're so hilarious, and they're so right on target. I wouldn't be without that on my YouTube channel subscription list. So anyway, that's it. Let's go back to the problem at hand, the Agenda 21 being implemented through this meeting of the two pillars and creating the greenness that's going to allow our new Solomon or Tuesday Weld or whoever to come on the planet. For those of you who aren't familiar with Agenda 21, this is a great little thing I want you to see because it summarizes it very quickly and concisely. Let's watch that.
Agenda 21 is an action plan of the United Nations, the UN, related to sustainable development and was an outcome of the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, the UNCED, held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, in 1992. It is a comprehensive blueprint of action to be taken globally, nationally, and locally by organizations of the UN governments, and major groups in every area in which humans directly affect the environment. That means you. The full text of Agenda 21 was revealed at the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, the Earth Summit, held in Rio de Janeiro on June 13, 1992, where 178 governments voted to adopt the program. The final text was the result of drafting, consultation, and negotiation, beginning, exoterically, in 1989 and culminating, at the two-week conference. The number 21 refers to an agenda for the 21st century. In 1997, the General Assembly of the UN held a special session to appraise 5 years of progress on the implementation of Agenda 21, Rio +5. The Assembly recognized progress as uneven, and identified key trends, including increasing globalization, widening inequalities in income and a continued deterioration of the global environment. A new General Assembly Resolution, S19/2, promised further action. The Johannesburg Plan of Implementation, agreed at the World Summit on Sustainable Development, Earth Summit 2002, affirmed UN commitment to full implementation of Agenda 21, alongside achievement of the Millennium Development Goals and other sinister in nature and criminal in intent, international agreements. There are 40 chapters in the Agenda 21, divided into 4 main sections. Section 1, Social and Economic Dimensions, which deals with poverty, especially for developing countries, changing consumption patterns, promoting health, change population and installing sustainable settlement in localized decision-making. Section 2, Conservation and Management of Resources for Development, includes atmospheric poisoning, deforestation, taking control of fragile environments, conservation of biological diversity, biodiversity, control of population and management of biotechnology and radioactive wastes. Section 3, Strengthening the Role of Major Groups, includes the roles of children and youth, women, clubs, groups, organizations, fraternities, local authorities, business and workers, and determining the role of indigenous peoples in their community and farmlands. Section 4, Means of Implementation. Implementation includes science, technology transfer, education, international institutions and financial mechanisms. In the various subsections of the Agenda 21 document, the agenda will be carried out through a wide range of sub-programs, and various acts which will be enacted starting in all of the G8 countries. Agenda 21 is viewed by the American right as a plan to stealthily impose worldwide centralized control over people, attacking private property and energy usage. A resolution approved by the Republican National Committee on the 13th of January 2012 asserted that Agenda 21 is a comprehensive plan of extreme environmentalism, social engineering, and global political control. Ultimately, Agenda 21 is a globalist tool, empowering an ever-tightening stronghold the UN has on the entire world. It is turning the world's food supply over to Monsanto, the people that gave us Agent Orange, for their public debut. Get involved, ask questions, write your congressman, fight Agenda 21, and the banksters behind it. Before it is too late to fight, it's already too late to run. You are in it, like it or not. You only have to choose to have a voice, or not.
Well, I thought that was a pretty good short summary for Agenda 21. There's a lot to it. It's happening all over the planet. It's happening probably in your city. They have a thing called the Delphi Project, where they come into your town and they convince you by way of a tricky, what they call the Delphi process, to buy into things like expanding green space, which doesn't sound like a bad idea, but it's at your expense. Taking back private property and other things. And they get you to agree to it. It happens on the local level. We have friends and actually relatives that are involved in this horrible thing called Agenda 21. And of course, it's going to make us all under a nice socialist communist government, the ones of us that are left. It won't be us because, of course, we free think and we actually think. The only ones that will be left in this plan are the 50 million people that can totally buy into the New World Order. If you're watching this, you won't be one of the ones. So, I hate to tell you that, but that's what's happening. Don't think it's not happening right now. Even before the Pope launches this thing, Agenda 21 is well underway. This will just give it new impetus, and they'll tack on New World Order legislation, United Nations legislation, individual country, individual state legislation that'll put this thing over. And you've got to stop it at every point, because your existence, well, if you're watching this, you probably won't make it because you think for yourself. But the people that make it aren't going to like it. Here, let's go back to Truth Stream Media and have them describe what the typical cities look like. Human settlements, they call them, look like in Agenda 21.
Melissa and Aaron here for True Stream Media.
Hi, everybody.
And everybody talks about Agenda 21 in terms of the future and in abstract terms. We're doing this report today to show you what it's actually looking like, because it's here and it's now.
And they've got test cities that are very high tech, and of course this is all in the name of saving the planet and saving resources. But notice almost everything is based on more electricity to surveil you and keep track of data. And yeah, I get that they want to use green technology to do it, but look how enslaved you're going to be to this system.
All right, so this was in the BBC. This is the City of 2050, and it's talking about how everything is going to be on a smart network. They're going to have fiber optics, but it won't just be fiber to the home. It's going to be a case of fiber to everything. It says all services, education, and government, utilities, etc., connected to this network, which will become, quote, the nerve center of the city. And everything is going to be on a sensor network. It says experts predict everything from street furniture to roads to homes we live in will be connected to this network. And it even says that some cities may build NASA-style control centers to make predictions about city life, including where crimes may be committed. So now we're talking about pre-crime. It talks about the human network, how rather than mobile phones, we're all going to have wearable computers, possibly something similar to Google Glass.
And basically you look like Data from Star Trek, but stupider.
We're even going to get delivery drones that are going to bring us our pizza, so yay for that.
Of course, they're not advertising the taser drones.
But this is still abstract. This is still what it will look like. Here's what it actually is. This is Masdar City. This is called the World of Tomorrow, or the New Future City. A lot of people are saying this is what future cities will look like. This is being built currently right now at a price tag of $22 billion in Abu Dhabi, and it's a completely walled smart city. And there's two squares here. They're completely walled. Everything's on the grid.
It's literally living inside the box. It looks like living in shipping containers. But actually what it really looks like, and I don't watch a lot of Star Trek, but the references are relevant. Someone pointed out the Borg. It's a hive collective where every entity that lives in it basically has no ability to dissent, and they just have to go along with this large, all-integrated system. It's really creepy looking. It looks like it's physically growing out of the ground into the Borg cube.
Well, and that's what it's going to be like, because everything is going to be on the grid, and all of that data will become one big mass. So this is Masdar City. It's a walled city, and it's supposed to be a completely sustainable, zero carbon, zero waste, car-free city. They even have these little personal rapid transit car things.
I'm sorry, but it looks like a suntanning booth on wheels. It's like a rolling coffin. I thought smart cars were bad,
Yeah, these are creepy. There's one of the options they're looking at. And it's supposed to be that everything has renewable sources, it's all green energy, and it sounds really great. But at the same time, you're all going to be completely on the grid, and we'll get more into how that's going to work. This is being backed by World Wildlife Fund, Greenpeace, and even the U.S. government. This is from 2010. It said that the ambitious Masdar City project has secured its arguably highest profile backer to date, as the U.S. government has signed a deal with Abu Dhabi on this city.
Well, that's the heart of the deception, is that you have to be on the grid, and it's endorsed by all these green for the earth groups. We could have alternative energy and still have our free plots of land and live off the grid. They want to control everyone because it's really, for them, about controlling human population numbers more than it is about the resources of the earth.
Exactly. And here you even have then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton going to the Masdar Institute. She's talking about renewable energy and climate change and sustainable development that takes advantage of human capital. That's pretty creepy. And she goes throughout and has a lot of remarks about how this isn't only in the interest of global progress. I mean, there's a lot about New World Order government basically here through these smart cities and this new renewable technology that everyone's partnering on. And if you think Masdar looks creepy, Sando International Business District creeps me out even more. This is another smart city or ubiquitous city. This one's coming in at a price tag of $40 billion. And this one is talking about how everything is going to be on the grid and people will even be chipped. And even mentions here that the schools in this city will be funded by the Ministry of Knowledge Economy, which, if that doesn't sound like it's straight out of George Orwell's 1984 dystopic future nightmare, I'm not sure what does.
And obviously that applies because Orwell had a system where you watch the propaganda through the television, but the television watches you back, and they're doing that in spades with every device watching you and monitoring you. Orwell couldn't have even foreseen this level of control.
Well, and it's also part of the Incheon Free Economic Zone.
Now, what I find interesting about free economic zones and free trade is that they sound free because of the rhetoric, but they're really trade blocks. And if you're not a partner to the trade block, you can't afford to do business. If you're a regular producer who doesn't produce in the free zone, not only do you pay more for labor and tariffs and stuff, but you don't have the access to the rapid transit and distribution. Not everyone can be Walmart.
Exactly. And so this article on smartdatacollective.com talks a lot about Songdo, and this is the world's first city in a box that's going to be ready by 2015, and it's a consortium of partners including Cisco, 3M, United Technology. Cisco's actually behind the other one, Masdar, as well. And it says that it will be a completely connected city where any device, building, or road will be equipped with wireless sensors or microchips. And it says that smart innovations such as streetlights that automatically adjust the number of people on the street. It doesn't mention IntelliStreets, but surely that's what it will be, which are the streetlights that have cameras and recording equipment inside of them. It says all houses in Songdo will be equipped with sensors known as domotica, which will be managed via a large TV in your living room. Next to the homes, there will be telepresence screens at all offices, hospitals, schools, and shopping centers. And it goes on to say everything here is going to be tracked, traced, and chipped. Everything. It says traffic will be measured via RFID tags on cars. They will send geolocation data to central monitoring units. It also says that public transportation will be completely wired. All locations will always be known. It says even when citizens throw away their garbage in the disposal, a chip card will be used, so even garbage will collect data. Then it goes on to say everything, the climate, the energy consumption, leisure activities, water consumption, all monitored by data. Special cameras will keep Songdo secured, while children will wear bracelets with sensors so that kids can be found if they're lost while they're playing. Every single thing within this city is going to be tracked, traced, chipped, monitored, and recorded.
And if they have their ducks in order, if it even works, where's the room for any freedom or any dissent in this society? Do you really want to trust the same governments that couldn't be trusted to collect taxes without going after political dissenters as the IRS did with Tea Party? or the companies that have been repeatedly caught charging more for electricity and other utilities because it's the summer or it's a deregulated climate and they can jack up the rates. This is a total surveillance state, and where they've tested this in the UK, they've got stuff that not only watches you, but scolds you and barks at you if you're found with antisocial behavior, or if you don't throw away garbage, or if you're a suspected pre-criminal.
Yeah, they're already not letting kids climb trees in those communities. You think they're going to be letting anybody do anything out of line here in this new smart grid with pre-crime built in? And so you've got that. You've got these things going into cities as well. This is IBM had built this in Rio de Janeiro. It's an intelligence control operations center, intelligent control collective, whatever this is. And basically you have these people in these white jumpsuits. It looks very much like THX 1138. And they sit in these giant rooms with computer screens everywhere and this huge bank of monitors that's monitoring all aspects of the city in real time. And they just sit and churn out the data. And it says here that the number of things connected to the internet is expected to reach 50 billion by 2020. And that basically it'll be an internet of things that goes one step further by not only integrating machines, people, ERP, CRM, and social networking systems, but also analyzing and using all that data. And I think what's going to end up happening is it's probably not even going to be people in creepy jumpsuits in here. It's probably going to just be completely monitored by a computer and completely autonomous.
And again, they're not only going to monitor your person, your refrigerator, your toilet, even your toaster, but they're going to fine you if you use too much. They're going to scold you or rebuke you, or they might just cut off your authorization altogether.
And that's pointed out actually in this article, The Quantified City, where they're talking about these new smart cities with smart sensors. And it says that, local governments might give us a tax break for taking shorter showers or leaving the refrigerator door open less often. And while that's true, they could be doing that with one hand. The other hand could also be swatting you with fines if they think you're using, too much water, too much electricity, anything. And this article also makes a really good point about smart cities could lead to dumb citizens. And it talks about how there's a real risk for our lives to become more automated, that we will become more like automatons. It says we will follow the guidance of our smartphones without reflecting on how we live our lives and engage in our communities. And basically, you see that already with people following their GPS, which tells these people, these are Japanese tourists that were in Australia, they were on holiday, they took a turn according to their GPS and drove right into the bay. They were too busy listening to a computer to have any common sense about what they were actually doing.
So smart cities produce idiocracy. Yeah, I get it. And there's no room for free thought. That's the message of the collective Hiveborg of Star Trek.
And basically, everything you do will be tracked, traced, chipped, monitored, and watched. Whatever kind of privacy you thought you had, whatever kind of freedom we even think we have now, that is out the window on these new Agenda 21 smart cities. It's amazing.
Don't buy the rhetoric. Just defund this. Say no. We've got to try to stop it. I'm not for this at all.
And I know we've shown you these two examples today, but these are just two examples. These kinds of cities are going up all over the world right now. All right, we'll talk to you guys later. Truth Stream Media.
Well, that was great. I love Melissa and Aaron. They're just great. You're going to love them too. You need to go to Truth Stream Media. But anyway, what they were talking about are the new smart cities. Look, you don't want to find yourself in one of those. And the Pope is supercharging on the 23rd this whole movement. So you've got to oppose it in every way you can. You've got to stop it. And you've got to stop it on the local level. You've got to find out what's happening in your town and then start going to those meetings. Start waking up. Now, there's a woman named Rosa Corey, and we'll have her linked up below. And she is mobilizing. She's analyzed the situation, and she'll be able to help you connect up with what you can do to stop this. This is atrocity against mankind. And as a responsible person that's waking up, we have to act. We have to stop because, see, we're in the part of the training program where we see at the training program and we know that it's not about accumulating wealth. It's not about getting rich. It's not about being famous. It's about doing the right thing because that's the criteria. Let's go back to the training program I was talking about in the beginning. If this is a training program, testing program, training program, which, unless it's for entertainment or torture, that would be the only options. If it's a training program and it's to teach you good from evil and what you have to do to succeed and minimize the negative feedback to you is to do the right thing. So doing the right thing is stopping this. This is a assault on human consciousness and our whole experience here. How can consciousness continue to expand in those conditions? Just think about it. You've got to act. So I was leaving, I wrote down 3 things I wanted to say at the end here. One is you've got to act. Now you know, and now you know what's happening. You know when it's happening. You know the spiritual underpinnings, how it's a work of satanic architecture to bring in Lucifer whenever he gets here or she gets here. So you've got to act against it. You're awake. Go forth. Okay. And the second thing I was thinking, that if this is a training program from human consciousness, and you're part of human consciousness, but you're not all of human consciousness, wouldn't it be advantageous to the system? You see, the way this training program works is you get immediate feedback. If you say that's a coincidence or you're not sensitive to know it, you really need to do that. It gives you medium range feedback, how your life is going. Your life will go better if you do the right thing. Believe me, that's true. And third, the long range thing. After this whole thing's over and after you're done with this planet, there's something else. You don't want to regret what you did here. That will give you feedback for a lot longer. So what I'm advocating is teach everybody else. Spread this video, spread Truth Stream Media, spread Rosa Corey's book and her site around. Let everybody know what's going on. Print the 2 documents that we were working on, the Evangelii Gaudium, and then this one on The Road to Dignity by 2030. Believe me, there's no dignity in 2030 if this thing is signed and it gets... So you want to be obstructive as you can and teach everybody else what you know so they can stand up and do the same thing. And then I was thinking that because this training program is speeding up, it's not like it was 100 years ago. We're going through, I could say, the eye of the needle. I mean, we're really going through, you've got to get it now, or it's going to come harder and faster. You've got to get it now. If you know that's happening, well, you know it's toward the end. And the end of this promises to be pretty good. It's either going to be going up into the Bronze Age, which is where we start getting our powers back. We start learning telepathy again, and we live in peace and harmony. Or it could be just an explosion into the Golden Age because of all the technology that's been kept from us. Medical technology, free energy technology. When that's released, it's going to be a golden age for everybody. Well, that's what I had to say about the Pope meeting with Obama and meeting with the UN. I hope I've taught you something, entertained you a little bit. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.